I am not a technologist. I don't think technology by itself or designing, the most powerful processor or the most powerful or the highest quality camera is going to make a real impact. I mean, this is my vision. Impact comes from empowering people with tools that basically can fulfill their needs in a specific context.
It's DeAndre here, and this is the Pioneers Show. The show where we talk with innovators, makers, entrepreneurs, basically people who are trailing their own trails and creating their own lives so that we all can learn how to work on our own lives. If this is your first time here, thank you for downloading and listening, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear this episode. Subscribe and enjoy listening to the pioneers of today. And if you're a repeat listener, welcome back. This is episode 22, and I'm your host, Andre de Albuquerque. You can find me at It's DeAndre on Twitter, as well as the show at Pioneers Show on Instagram. In today's show, I bring you Sebastian Mealla. He's the CEO and managing partner of Protopixel, a great startup that is working on democratizing lighting technology for artists. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably never heard of this. Be prepared for a masterclass into this type of technology. Fascinating on how much a segment of creative technology was left off my education and in the public eye. In this conversation, we go through Sebastian's education history, his interests in storytelling and marketing, and how this intriguing startup was created. I really hope you enjoy this conversation, and this serves as an eye-opener on this industry and how we can learn from his experience. Without talking a lot more, let's jump into the conversation with Sebastian Mealla. Welcome, and I'm really happy that you're here. So for people who don't know who you are, care to give us a presentation?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you, Andre, for the invitation. I'm super happy to be here. So I am Sebastian Mealla. I was born in Argentina, so my background is on actually in communications. So I come from a quite entrepreneurial family. Actually, my father was an entrepreneur back in Argentina, and kind of I got a lot of motivations to start my own businesses from there. From my father. When I finished school, I was living in Cordoba, which is the second biggest city in Argentina, and I did my undergrad there in communication. And then during the university, I actually started creating my own, not businesses, but my own projects with colleagues. I always liked to build things with other people, and I think that's something that I kind of like connects most of my journey in this regard. So once I finished my undergrad there, I was working for the Spanish embassy, leading the technology and cultural projects in Latin America. So that took me to live in many different cities in Latin America. So I was living in Buenos Aires, then in Santiago de Chile, Lima, Bogota, and
so capitals throughout South America.
Exactly. So I was kind of like helping the Spanish government to bring tech and culture from Spain to Latin America, which is there is like cultural connection on neuroscience and cognitive science to understand how actually our brain works with machines. So kind of at a very low level. And then after I finished my master's, I started a PhD in this music technology group in the university. So basically I got specialized on human-computer interaction. And in my PhD, basically I started researching on how to build intuitive, user-friendly, and seamless musical interfaces for musicians, but also for the general people. I mean, for people without experience, which was something. I think it was a very nice period of my life, because there is where I basically went deep into user-centered design to understand how to design for people with different needs, people with different skills, that at the end of the day they want to make music. So I was my supervisor at that time was Sergi Jordan, and Sergi is one of the creators of a very what became very famous musical instrument. It's called the React table.
React table.
React table. I don't know if you don't know that is basically an interactive tabletop, like a table that basically puts together like the way you will play with a traditional musical instrument. So physical elements that you place on top of the table. The idea that you can actually access to more than one process at the same time. The collaborative aspect, so it's around the table, so you can play with other people, and at the same time also all the benefits of a digital musical instrument, which is the possibility of delegating some musical process to the computer, the idea that you can automatize some either like sound generations or filters or effects. And everything came together in this instrument. And it became very, very famous because at that time Björk bought it. So Björk was the first kind of mainstream artist that started making music with the React table.
Interesting.
And then also Coldplay was using it, and it became kind of like very, I think, very popular on the digital musical instruments. And that was kind of the first product in which I was working from this kind of a user-centered perspective. And during my PhD, I met my co-founders, Carla Sandani and Alba, with which we actually started Protopixel as well.
So before we go on and talk about Protopixel, I have a lot of things to tackle about the things you talked about. So first of all, you kind of touched it when you mentioned already cultural connection from Argentina with Spain, but what made you go into the diplomacy route after college?
Okay, yeah. So the thing is that, I mean, when I was like fresh out of college, I wanted to start working right ahead, and so I started working for the Spanish embassy. And after 1 year or after some time, I realized that I want to kind of to get more skills or more like deeper knowledge on to understand how basically we humans interact with computers. So for me, I mean, I am not an engineer, so I got my background in communication, but I was always interested on this link between technology, arts, creativity, and at that point, I mean, I found being in Argentina, where you don't have that many, at that point, you didn't have many like digital products going on or startups or tech companies. For me, like a natural way to get that knowledge and go deeper into this
is to move to somewhere that has.
So first, it was research. So I took the decision of like becoming a researcher, and also it was a good way for someone from Latin America to get funding to move to Europe. So that's why I got a grant, and I was able to move to Europe with this funding.
Yeah. Interesting. This was one of the questions that I meant to do in a few minutes, but I'll ask you now. So why the fascination, if I may ask? So for example, you studied communications.
Yeah.
I come from a communications background, but first of all, and for me, I think that every time that I talk with someone who has a background in communications, there's a really emotional, so I mean, for any background, for example, but as a personal curiosity, what made you go into communications?
Well, I mean, I think like first of all, because again, my father, back on the day, he basically installed the first TV cable system in the town where I was living.
Oh, great.
So I was since very little, I was in touch with, like, for instance, like, like CCTV system, TV systems, video making, like, audiovisual stuff, audiovisual people. So I kind of like, got a very deep awareness of the power of how you can actually create and distribute content through media. I'm talking at least in the 90s, even like before the internet. And then when the internet came, I was already, like I saw it as a way in which content could be distributed in a broader way. So that was one of the triggers, like the idea of like kind of go deeper into the things I was already in touch when I was in my hometown. And the other thing is that I've been always like a very communicative, person. So I also like writing or, like creating basically narratives. Mm-hmm. So I also enjoy and I still enjoy quite a lot, like making like videos. For instance, this is something that in Protopixel we do a lot. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of content-based marketing and content-based communication. And I do believe in the power of narratives, in the way you communicate an experience to people. So you can have a very nice product, or you can have even a very interesting solution to bring to the market. Mm-hmm. But through a proper narrative and a proper storytelling, you can really engage people at a very emotional and in a deeper way. And that's why I went into communication, because I wanted to be a storyteller. Yeah.
That's what happened with me. I can share with you. So basically the main reason I went to marketing for me was Apple. Mm-hmm. I never had an Apple product by then, but it was just the sheer amount of passion that people had to a brand that they didn't have.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I always found that so engaging, and I wanted, like you, for example, to be able to storytell, to know how to do the flicker in your mind when I need to have that.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, this was a little tangent. So you moved to Europe, to Barcelona, to become a researcher. Mm-hmm. But you were already getting to start being interested in the way that neuroscience, the way that brains interact with your mind. Mm-hmm. In which capacity? And I'm asking you specifically because we've had previous guests here on the show that talk about VR and health. Mm-hmm. We have about VR and, once again, let's call it psychological health. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them talk about the processing power of a computer applied to the mind to be able to, let's call it, either trick the mind or help us rebuild some past projects.
Yeah.
In which capacity is your interest in computer-human interfacing?
First of all, I mean, in these dynamics of human-computer interaction, there is like there is an interplay between humans and a machine, and you can see this as a relationship that augments your capacities for processing information and for doing things. But we and our body, we are a very rich source of information, and the way we interact with machines, even that there has been kind of a lot of innovation in the way the devices that we have are designed. The interaction models are more or less the same. We still use the keyboard. We still are quite linked to screens. So if you go like back to the 80s, I mean, you see the way we like the interfaces and so on. They didn't really change much. Mm-hmm. I mean, we still we do have like things like VR or AR. We are seeing more like natural interfaces that are embedded in the devices we use now, but it's pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. And a way for me to create or to design an interface was first to understand how we as humans first of all perceive things, how do we process information, and what kind of information a computer can acquire from us. So one of my main lines of research, for instance, was implicit interaction. So a way to put this is that most of the ways in which we interact with computers is explicit. So we have to explicitly input information into the device. So let's say we want to play a sequence or a loop. So you have to to consciously select a sample. You have to to cut it and to make a selection of a musical piece, and then you have to inject that into a computer. Or if you want to search something on Google Maps, you have to type or to provide some sort of input with your voice, for instance. So I was more interested on how can we make computers that will actually look at our body continuously and will actually extract meaningful information from that, and will actually provide a response to the user without the need of having to, explicitly insert the command. So for instance, one of the things I was doing is I was using brain-computer interfaces. So I was connecting different type of electroencephalographic sensors into musicians.
Always applied to music.
Yeah, because my research was my test bed was always music. Okay. So, and I mean, I chose music basically. Music takes most of the human bandwidth. When you are playing music, you are using most of the time both of your hands. Your attention is you put your attention into the instrument. Your auditive senses are also engaged in the composition. So for me, it was like, okay, this is kind of like already taking most of the bandwidth. How can we go like beyond that? So I started like, for instance, acquiring data from the body. I was using brain-computer interfaces, heart rate, electromyography for looking into the muscles, and then I was creating algorithms that will monitor those physiological signals, will classify them, and will provide you with some musical feedback to improve your performance.
Before we go deeper in this specific area, which I'm genuinely very interested, because as someone who's played guitar and learned to play guitar alone for like 15 years now, that loves string instruments, that every time that I see a guitar I can just start playing and start thinking about other things. How did you learn those things specifically? Was it any book, any course? Because coming from a communication background, developing algorithms is not something that you necessarily do. Understanding how to read data from muscles, EKGs, whatever it is, it's not in our common background.
Totally.
Was it any book? Was it something that you were learning since you were studying neuroscience? Where was the knowledge? Where did the knowledge come from for you to be able to apply this same specific sets of data?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, I was already learning many, so how to program before by myself, and then so I did a master's first. So during the master's, I acquired some of this knowledge, and then when you start the PhD, it's pretty much kind of like you start a relationship. Also, you have to choose your mentor or your supervisor, your research lab, and because I knew that I would need to acquire all this knowledge, I went into this research group that I knew it was very hands-on. So it's still a research lab that is pretty much like engineering driven. They build stuff. It's not kind of this theoretical or more more conceptual driven research. It was very, very hands-on, and very empirical in the way things were validated. So I did my PhD during 4 years, and I basically acquired it from there.
So all this knowledge came, or you acquired this knowledge during the master's and the PhD, and then applied it with this research in music and all the effects that it has on the body.
Exactly, and also collaborating with a bunch of people, which I think is one of the main things I took from my research experience, was like not only the fact of because research can be quite lonely, because you are pretty much by your own at several levels, especially when you have to write papers, or when you have to do your experiments and so on. So through this collaboration, I could actually not only learn but also create projects or develop tools that by myself would have been very complicated. Yeah. Okay. And in fact, during my PhD, I met my co-founders.
Yeah, you already mentioned that. So still going a little bit deeper into music, because like I said, it's something that I'm really passionate about. What was what were the key takeaways that you can now remember that surprised you? Because I think that a lot of people say that it's common sense that if you listen to specific music, it can pump you up emotionally. You can listen to some music that can make you tense up physically. There was this study a few years ago that said, for example, that Staying Alive from Bee Gees was the perfect music for CPR, which is crazy. But what were the main takeaways, or the key takeaways that surprised you with your research, apparently, with music and all the interfacing with computers for that specific area?
Yeah, I mean, I think like music research is very fascinating because it really tackles like a broad range of aspects of human perception and performance. So music is it basically activates a large, range of brain regions, for instance. So if you want to understand, for instance, like perception, if you want to understand, for instance, what conscious and unconscious processes, or even, your perception of space, of time, music is a really good example of that. Not only listening to music, but also playing music. And there is a ton of research on music and neuroscience, basically because of that, because music engages like a broad range of human capacities. So for me, first of all, it was very surprising to know that through music I could actually understand many things that can apply to other fields.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, like for instance, emotional responses to things. So we most of the affective response we have to reality are unconscious and quiet, and very very fast. And this is a process that happens first on an unconscious level, and sometimes we are emotionally reacting to things and we are not even conscious about that. So for instance, this thing that you were saying, like for instance, how listening to different like musical patterns or different tonalities will actually provoke a different affective response to you, and will actually affects how you perceive a given experience where you are in. So for instance, one thing I was doing, I was running experiments on how musicians could augment their music performance by measuring the affective response to what they were playing. And I was calibrating, for instance, the complexity of the musical instrument according to that. So I could actually measure how frustrated or how engaged were you with your musical performance, and then if you will get more nervous or more frustrated with what you were playing, the computer will take over the performance and will introduce some musical pattern to make it easy for you.
Interesting.
So that's, for instance, for music learning was something like very very interesting, because then if you have for instance a kid that is learning how to play music, especially instruments like the violin, for instance, which is like extremely complex. It takes years to actually master.
Or harp, for example.
Or the harp or the piano. So you can actually provide them with kind of like a adaptive learning experience.
Interesting. That's really interesting. One of the things I find more exciting in music is that nowadays you can create some things without thinking. For example, everybody or a lot of people have heard that specific area of the chord, 4-chord transition, and basically can create 17,000 songs there. Most of the hit songs since the 1980s have been developing with 4 chords or 4 transitions. But for example, I also feel like there are some specific types of songs that it's almost a guarantee that if you introduce a violin there and some strings in the back, and it's a very potted song, like very slow beat, you can get goosebumps. It's almost like a real thing.
Yeah.
And do you think that people who create music from a laboratory perspective, so compositors? Composers, thank you. So composers that have tons of years of experience, like Hans Zimmer or any other big name composer, do you think that these people have the neurological research on their side, or do they come from emotional expertise of the music, or do you think that any of them, if they encounter someone like you who has the scientific background to say, if you do it like this, maybe you can engage a different emotional response? Do you think that's a possibility, or it doesn't?
Yeah, actually, I think that nowadays collaboration between musicians, and I'm talking about like really professional or even like mainstream famous musicians and neuroscientists, is getting more common than ever before. Basically, because I think most of the musicians, they have this knowledge, but from an empirical, from experience, basically. So because they master their discipline or their instruments, they already have a kind of like an intuition about where music will take you, and then music research comes basically to kind of complement that and to confirm. And there are very interesting researchers, like for instance I think it's Roberto Satorre from like McGill University in Canada, that they have collaborated with musicians and put them into more research, conditions, and look into the brain through fMRI, for instance, to basically to confirm or to understand, what's the effect of this of this music into the brain. I mean, I think that at least in my case, I mean, there is there are like two big benefits into approaching music through research, which is basically you can really understand music and human-machine interaction from a perceptual level, because you look into people's perception, but also you get a very solid knowledge about how to design interfaces, so musical instruments and at the end of the day products, to make music that go beyond using a keyboard and a mouse. And this was something that for us at Protopixel was always like it's still like a very strong design guideline. Like you can use computers in ways which are more natural, and you can use technology in order to create interfaces that goes beyond this setup. So the React table I was telling you before was a bit like that. Then, for instance, we work in a European project for 3 years with 3 different universities where we were using, for instance, like muscle interfaces and machine learning to basically to understand or to track gestures and to make music with hand gestures. And that was great. I mean, and you can see it even today that there are a lot of musical products that runs on a smartphone, and many of them they use, for instance, the accelerometer, and they integrate this idea of movement also as an input for creating music.
I think that one of the most fascinating new music products I've seen recently was the Rolly. I think that's the name, the piano kind of thing where you just slide your finger.
The Seaboard.
Yeah,
the Rolly Seaboard. And in fact, in this European project I told you about, Rolly was one of our partners. And Rolly, for instance, I agree with you. So this idea of how can you augment kind of like a traditional instrument, which is like a piano, and adding more levels of expression through
like the slide, the treble of trembling your finger, making the sound like in a guitar.
Exactly, you can do a glissando basically, and then this idea that you can have a continuous dynamic control rather than a discrete one, like you have in a piano. I mean, it's basically going in the direction I was commenting before. I mean, you can really integrate human expression into different new musical interfaces.
One of the things that it fascinates me and that you're touching a lot is talking about human-centered design, human experience, human expression, human-focused product building even. First, this is going to be a twofold question. So first of all, what got you interested? I assume that the storytelling is still part of it. It's still trying to figure out how people react. But at the same time, how did you, once again, learn how to evolve such product building expertise? So let's put these skills into a more entrepreneurial skill set. Product management, project management. Was this coming from experience, or did you read any set of books, or were you having any kind of teachers, mentors? Let's put it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this is a very good question, at least for me, because when I was kind of like in the middle of my PhD program, I realized and I decided that I didn't want to do research anymore. I knew that after my PhD, I wanted to either to create my own company or to move to the industry somehow. I just didn't see myself being, a lifelong like researcher and publishing and so on. So when I was doing that, I basically started thinking about, okay, how I'm going to make the most of the knowledge I am acquiring in this in my research experience, and I'm going to transfer this into the industry or to an entrepreneurial project. So I quickly started like focusing on methodologies that will help me to create products. And in the field of human-computer interaction, the idea of user-centered design and user-centric interaction design is still very strong. So I started, shifting my research towards the idea of how can we actually get some design guidelines and design processes by looking into real world needs and looking into what's needed at an experience level. I still believe that I am not a technologist. I don't think technology by itself or designing the most powerful processor or the most powerful or the highest quality camera is going to make a real impact. I mean, this is my vision. I think that the real impact comes from empowering people with tools that basically can fulfill their needs in a specific context. So context for me is very important when you design. The context in which you use technology, and also the skill set and the background of what your user, what's your ideal user. And again, in this case, for me, music was also perfect because musicians are very demanding. Musicians are experts. When you design a product for musicians, I think that there are only one type of user that is more demanding than the musician, which are children. The children are the ultimate, for me, user testers. They really go deeper into your stuff, and they are very honest. And musicians also, when you create when you create a musical interface, you really have to understand what's the context and the skill set of the musician that is going to play with it. And in fact, there is a very nice conference in the musical domain called NIME, which is New Interfaces for Musical Expression.
New Interfaces for Musical Expression.
Exactly. NIME. So where it's a conference where many people goes to present musical instruments that they design or musical interfaces, studies on how different body gestures or different type of music tools can be used in a performance or in a composition context. And I think that's this is how I started by focusing on user-centered design. And then when I was finishing my PhD, I applied for in our lab we applied for a European grant that was basically focused on user-centered design. So it was a project that the goal was to transfer research-grade knowledge, so things that you create in a research lab, to the industry. So that was a way of saying, okay, all this knowledge you develop into a research lab that many times just stays there. How to create vehicles and methodologies that will allow these research labs to transfer this to a startup, for instance, or to a company. And that's why in this consortium that we have, we had universities, research labs, but also we had startups and companies. So Rolly was there. There was another company from Portugal called Plax, which create do-it-yourself biosensors.
Oh, interesting.
React Table, which is the musical instrument I was telling you about, was also part of the consortium. So then we team up with these companies, and we transfer algorithms, classifiers, hardware components to the companies, so they can actually commercialize them and create new products.
But when the main question here is, for example, imagine that we have another person listening here to the show, and he's saying that I cannot afford right now to go to the university or to apply to one of these grants. Is there any resource that Sebastian can recommend me in terms of where can I read more? Is there any resource that you, when you were doing this and learning more on this subject, that you limped on more or had more support on, any specific book, any specific podcast, any specific video, any author, any blog that you read that someone that it's outside and doesn't have that can't afford, for example, going into research.
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, I mean nowadays, especially because now there is a big and very strong trend of open access research. There are many papers that you can download for free that before was they were not available. So there are many papers from this kind of conference I was telling you. NIME. There is one of the most important conferences on human-computer interaction, which is called CHI. CHI. Most of the papers are also CHI, so computer-human interaction. So this is one of the most important human-computer interaction conference in the world. So they also have many papers on open access. There are a couple of researchers and designers that for me were very they influenced a lot my work. One is called Bill Buxton. So Bill Buxton was an early researcher in the 70s in Xerox PARC. Then he is actually working now in Microsoft Research. So he has like amazing books about design thinking, but really. I cannot remember the name of the book. But
no worries, we can link up the name of the author and just try and.
Great. So, for instance, he has a very interesting approach about how daily life and daily life objects actually influence a design process. So, how can looking into the analog to design the digital, basically. He's also one of the pioneers on these tangible interfaces, also augmented reality. And the other one that I would recommend is called Bill Gaber. So he's a researcher at the Goldsmiths University in London. I had a chance to meet him at some point. He's very strong in what is called design-driven research. So he actually does research using design methods.
Interesting.
And he has very interesting white papers. So more conceptual writing around like design and research, and I think those are, I would say, like very interesting assets for that. And then there are a lot of MOOCs as well from Stanford University, from the MIT, that you can subscribe and you can get courses from like interaction design, user-centered design, and also a lot of like now machine learning. And I think it's like those are publicly available, and I think you can rely on them.
So for anyone who's listening and doesn't know what a MOOC is a massive open online course.
Exactly.
It's like Udemy. Stanford has its own. EDX. It's a lot of the Harvard ones. MIT also has one. So any open online course of the aggregator, you can find also all this information.
There is one MOOC, that is called Cadence. Cadence, which is basically.
How do you spell it?
Kadence. Cadence. Yeah, Cadence, exactly. So this one is a MOOC platform basically focused on creative tech. So if you are interested, for instance, on music, or for instance in machine learning and creativity, like for instance Google Magenta, or this kind of more this kind of like a AI with a creative angle. They have amazing MOOCs there.
Cadence.
Yeah, Cadence.
I will check it out and it will be linked up in the show notes. And thank you for that. Okay, so we were already toying around a little bit talking about ProtoPixel. So pitch it to us. What's ProtoPixel?
Okay, so ProtoPixel is basically the platform where any designer can design, share, and control high-impact lighting, basically with easy-to-use tools that they can learn in 1 hour. So it's basically it's a cloud-based platform that makes lighting design easy for everyone. You can see it almost as the Photoshop of lighting. So you don't have to have any type of like lighting background in order to create your lighting environments. So it empowers you with a lighting design tool that is online, and then it makes very, very easy to place these lighting environments in a wide range of venues directly from the cloud. So you can, for instance, create your own lighting design for a retail store chain, and you can directly from our cloud system deploy directly in 40 stores without having to physically go there. And you can monitor all your lighting infrastructure also from our platform. And what is also very important is that we provide the end user, so for instance the store manager, with a mobile environment, with a mobile app that they can use to interact with the designs that they buy from the professional designers.
Oh, so they buy the... Okay, but when you say professional designers, are we talking about animators? So when I think about lighting, and we'll go deeper into lighting itself, when I think about lighting design, I might think in a very layman's terms that how specific lamps are protrude into a wall that makes written per the pixel. But I assume that if you're talking about design, we're talking about a full wall filled with lamps that you control with a cloud-based app. Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, basically, so lighting design is basically the conceptualization and the creation of a lighting environment that, of course, includes hardware components, so devices like lighting fixtures, the distribution of these fixtures on the space, and then the lighting content that is going to be displayed by these luminaires, by these fixtures. So like the intensity, the color, the temperature, and so it's a highly, of course, creative process. And nowadays is still a professional skill. So when we talk about designers, we most of the time talk about lighting designers, so people that have already some background on lighting, and they would like to create a lighting environment fast and easy, but still reliable. So that's kind of like what Protopixel gives to them. But the thing is that like music before, or video, or photography, for instance, they also used to be a very professional domains. So like in the 90s, for instance, photography was still quite professional. You would have to buy a professional camera, and then even when they released the digital cameras, they were still kind of like expensive and for professionals. But now everyone has a camera in their phone, right? So all these fields, as they get more digital, they also get closer to everyday life. This is happening with lighting as well. So lighting is getting more digital because of the LEDs. So LEDs are now being ready to be digitally driven. And what we are doing with Protopixel, and this is our vision, is we are democratizing lighting.
That's what I was going to ask you. You're basically democratizing
so
the access to lighting design.
The access, also, we are democratizing the experience of shaping your own lighting.
So when we talk about lighting, and I think that's important to also understand, when you're talking about lighting, we're not just talking about a different shade of white or yellow. We're talking about different colors. We're talking about the way that at a sequence specific lights get turned on or off, or with a different color, right?
Yeah, so when we are talking about lighting, we are talking about the combination of the distribution of your lighting devices in the space, and the interaction and the properties of these lighting devices in terms of color, in terms of intensity, in terms of dynamic changes, like fading on and off, the interactions with natural light, and the possibility of how can you program all this into a sequence, into a pattern, or make it user-centric through sensors, for instance. So right now, because we have this idea that lighting is just an on and off experience, now it's okay, I have like a switch and it's on and off. But nowadays, like lighting fixtures are expanding all the control possibilities to all these combinations of color, movement, intensity, white, and so on. So the lighting environments are getting richer.
Okay, so the way we talk about lighting environment, just to understand and not to play a little bit devil's advocate, but just trying to understand. Imagine that I have a fashion store.
Yeah.
What would be my incentive as a fashion store owner, be it fast fashion or very classy fashion? What would be my incentive to pay for the pixel?
Okay, that's a very good point. So, lighting is basically a need. Right? You need lights in order to showcase your products, basically to create, to be able to people to see what's inside your shop. Lighting directly affects the way a product is perceived, its quality, the way you actually, how comfortable you feel inside the store, and also it can provide a completely different experience compared to the competitors, because you can create more unique spaces or unique environments that will give you more footfall. So, in the case of if you have a store, for instance, retail store chains, especially fashion, they heavily invest on technology to create different customer experiences. So they design their sound, they design the scent, they also work with screens, and lighting is one of the main also components of the customer experience design. So what we are providing, for instance, retail stores or fashion stores, is a lighting tool that will allow them to take the most of the lighting elements they are placing into their store. They can, for instance, instead of having a monolithic, static lighting all the time, they can easily, for instance, deploy or change between different lighting environments according, for instance, to the season of the year.
Yeah, that's okay. If it's summer, you
can exactly. So, for instance, you can change the season. The products change. You have a range of different colors. You can easily adapt all the lighting according to the colors of the products that you have. You can actually guide navigation inside the store according to how you configure the lighting. So you can have like highlights, you can have low lights. And also what is very important is that, your lighting designer can provide you with all of these, or with all these lighting presets, and then you locally can just switch between these lighting presets without the need of an expert. And also you can make this lighting adaptive to your customer needs. So for us, for instance, one very strong concrete example is changing rooms. So you go to store. So you found a shirt that you like, and then you go to the changing room, you try it out, and the light is super bad. It happens to many people. Or you go to a restaurant and you are having like a dinner, with your couple, and you want a more like cozy or more intimate environment, and the light is not good.
Too light.
And the thing is that the store manager just cannot change that, because lighting control system right now in these markets are monolithic. So you have a design, you install it, and if you want to change the setup, you will have to physically go there, and you will have to call an expert in order to change those setups. And with ProtoPixel, it's not only that you can access to professional lighting design in a fast, reliable, and affordable way, but also we empower the businesses to gain a level of control on the lighting they have. So they can, for instance, we have restaurants that use ProtoPixel that they can easily, for instance, dim the light of every single table. They can.
You can go to that, but you can go to the very specific spot. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying before we get back to the restaurants, you can eventually, and depending on how the research is put, you can actually put different lights inside a store. So you have a specific light in the changing room. You can have a specific light for male. You can have a specific light for pants. You can go all the way to that specific.
Yeah. And actually, ProtoPixel is one of the first platforms that can actually also address digital LEDs or pixel addressable LEDs, which are fixtures that you can control not at the lamp level, but you can control at the pixel level. So that means that you can actually provide fine-grained lighting designs in which you can actually create very smooth changes, or you can create like very subtle modifications of lighting in order to have a more dynamic environment for your products. And a concrete example of that is, for instance, circadian rhythms, which is called. This is something that is one of the classic uses of like user-centric lighting, which is how can you make light change as time pass by, so people that works in a workspace, for instance, can perceive that time is running. Exactly, and that directly impacts in your comfort. And this you can see now in offices or in workspaces in which they apply these circadian designs.
Circadian designs.
Yeah, okay. Exactly, because you follow the circadian rhythms of the sun. And basically it has a direct impact in the way in how comfortable you feel. The quality of light, so the quality of the whites or the color, it also make you feel, if the quality is good, you feel less tired because you can see better things. So all these kind of lighting practices were in the market for a long time. But again, because the lighting industry is still very professional, it was accessible only for for high profile, high budget businesses.
But one thing that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that you're taking out the professionality of the specific industry. You're just giving access to more people to become their own experts in that specific area by trying in the market, because I assume that you're doing this with the more professional, with the most professionality possible. Yeah,
that's a very good point.
But what you're saying is probably, and correct me, it's more corporate, almost industrialized. It's a very standard approach rather than having people become creative in that specific area.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm referring more towards the way these designs are distributed. So it's true that it's not that the design process is going to be less professional, but like the lighting value chain is highly complex. That would be the word. I think the word, because for a business, especially for a small business, you were saying before, like small store here in, for instance, I don't know, in Kreuzberg, to acquire a professional lighting design is very difficult, because you will have to hire a lighting designer to develop a project for you, and then you will have to hire a professional installer to actually to deploy that into your store. And that basically means that the whole process for you to acquire this lighting experience is complicated, is expensive,
and it's multiple people.
Exactly. So what we are doing is we are kind of like simplifying the whole lighting experience from the design stage to the deployment stage.
So you also sell the lamps.
We do have some hardware components, and we do sell some lighting fixtures, but that's not our main business.
Your main business is the platform. But for example, let's say I'm opening now a small store here in Kreuzberg, taking the example here in Berlin. I want to have you guys do the service of the lighting, or at least install the platform in my own store. If I still don't have anything besides the place, I will have to ask someone to install these fixtures. I would go through you, or would you point me to a partner that would be able to install everything, and you would be the technological partner?
Exactly. So basically, at the stage in which we are now, so we focus on the professional market. So, and we don't sell through businesses directly, but we sell through the design experts.
Okay.
So basically, it's very strange. I mean, it doesn't happen very often that we sell directly to the business. But basically, what we are doing is we are creating a community of designers that basically place our platform in a broad range of businesses. And it happens, so our go-to-market strategy is that we engage designers. So for us, this design community is the most important angle of our platform.
So you're a community-driven
totally.
marketplace to sell to business.
So right now we are a community-driven platform that basically we help this community to design, distribute, and control lighting in a better way and in a simpler way. And many businesses approach us sometimes to acquire these lighting experiences. And what we do is that we connect them with our design community. So at the end of the day, we linked kind of like the offer with the demand, and we are on our way basically to. So again, we want to simplify the way lighting design arrives to businesses, to small businesses, and to end consumers ultimately. So this is kind of the first stage in which we are, and we basically pay a lot of attention to our design community. So a tool, I mean, for us, in the lighting field, I mean, the main challenge is not technological. So right now, the problem is not that much, how to create the most versatile lighting fixture or the most powerful lighting design tool. This is happening. Philips is working on that.
Philips Hue, right?
Philips Hue or Philips with many products. Osram as well. So for us, the challenge is the experience. Is how you actually provide an experience that will actually make all this design knowledge reach these customers in a way in which is easy to use, in which design is a core value of the process, and in which you will actually do it in a simple way.
Actually, I have one question about this, and going to the environment part. I remember a lot of years ago, my father used to work with a bank, and they designed a place specifically to become inhospitable, like the bar. The ground was the floor was painted red, like dark red. The music there was very low and not enough for you to enjoy it, but enough to be there. But since you can't enjoy it, it's kind of
yeah.
Can you? I mean, I assume that of course you want your business to be hospitable, but imagine that there's a business that designed something or a place to be inhospitable. I don't know why would someone do it, but I assume you can create something to not have people want there just to buy and leave. For example, a fast food place.
Yeah.
Do you think that, and this is a weird question that it may not even make sense, but imagine that I have a fast food and I want people to keep going, so make the place inhospitable. I hire a lighting designer that uses ProtoPixel. It's perfect for my own goal. But then we have someone say, oh, that was built by ProtoPixel and it's awful. No one likes to be there. Do you think that if you have someone using that for the wrong mission that you might have to, okay, the mission is democratize lighting design, or the access to lighting design, but if you are associated with people that are trying to build something to be inhospitable according to this, do you think that can also give a bad image to your business?
Well, the thing is that when we started the company, we didn't start it like being kind of like a startup. We started first kind of like under an agency, a studio model. So we were creating kind of like a custom lighting control system for clients. And that means that we were also handling the design content. And because we are very design driven, and ProtoPixel has a strong also design angle, because we want to provide the best possible experience for the designer and for the end user. We were very picky, and we were very careful, on having like, the best possible design for the clients we were having at that point. But then when we did the transition towards product,
marketplace,
to the market, through the platform, and to design a product that will be used by other designers, which won't be us.
So you're no longer responsible for what it's like Illustrator. They're not responsible for people who make bad design.
And I think that's also great. I mean, the other day, I think that the beauty of creating products in the creative industry is that people can create a lot of different things. So sometimes you will like them. I don't even know many things that are being created with ProtoPixel right now. I love that. When you have a product that then you just is there and you just see people is subscribing and they are or downloading it. And sometimes I found things because they tag us and I say, okay, this is super ugly and I really don't like it, or very cheesy, because the lighting can get very cheesy. In party, in I don't know, whatever,
like a sweet 16 party,
exactly.
A glowing and blinking 16.
The other day, I found a guy that was that designed his Christmas decoration with ProtoPixel. For
that
his
can
house.
be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. Even if you don't like it, you get so much. I think it's so rewarding to see that. Okay, that actually your product is a tool that actually, is empowering people. And
but sorry to interrupt you, but then mentioning the Christmas thing.
Yeah.
Imagine it's one person who did his own personal Christmas lighting with ProtoPixel.
Yeah.
So imagine that I buy a specific wall of LEDs, whatever. Do I plug it into a computer? Is it connected via Wi-Fi, Bluetooth? How do you manage that? Because that's actually very interesting.
So basically, the infrastructure goes so you need your LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
Every LED that you would like to control, it will need a driver or a controller. So for instance, in a home setup, in Philips Hue, you have a gateway basically that does that. But in a more business setup, you have more standard controllers, and basically our platform is compatible with these controllers. So then you connect these controllers to a computer. We also have our own controllers that we develop basically for these pixel addressable LEDs I was telling you before, but they are not mandatory. You can use controllers like DMX, ARNet, DALI, which are kind of standard protocols in the market, and then basically you connect this to the computer. And when you connect it with the computer, you can just start sending lighting content from ProtoPixel. We also have because normally you don't want to have a kind of a dedicated computer doing that. We sell a product called the ProtoPixel Node, which is a small computer like an Apple TV that you basically load your lighting presets there, the ones that you create with ProtoPixel, and basically it just runs all the lighting and then you interact with it with an app.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Before we go a little deeper into ProtoPixel, I just have one very possible, not simple question. You were studying, going a way step back in this conversation, some big steps back, rather. You were studying neuroscience, doing your PhD. You met your co-founders in the PhD.
Yeah.
Applied to music.
Yeah.
How do you go from music to light?
Yeah. Okay. That's a very good. Yeah. So, it was very, something happened, basically, which is, we were in the university back in Barcelona, and one day we got a call from the owners of one of the most famous buildings in Barcelona, which is at that point it was called the Akbar Tower, which is a skyscraper made by Jean Nouvel.
It's the big
tower,
kind of round,
exactly rounded, a bit like a cucumber. And they
call it cucumber.
They call it cucumber. And then the thing is that they have a very beautiful lighting facade. So it's fully covered by LEDs. And they called us and said, look, we have this media facade, which is very nice, but we would like to control it, because basically the only thing we can do is just switching it on and off, and that's the only thing we can do. And in Spain, in New Year's Eve, there is something called Las Campanadas, which is when you approach midnight, they ring a bell, and you have to eat some grapes in the last, I think, 10 seconds of the transition from one year to another. So normally, so they said, okay, we would like to have an animation there, for the campanadas, and to have this kind of like, like very dynamic content, so everyone from the city can see it and can eat the grapes and so on. And because they knew that we were kind of like nerds and doing, weird stuff, they said, we assume you can do it because the guys that installed this, they just cannot do that. So we say, okay, we took the challenge and we went there. And then when we arrived to the building, we saw the setup, and we said, we know that this is like synthesizers from like the 70s, like this kind of or this kind of like surfaces with knobs and faders. It's like music like 30 years ago, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we quickly saw that we could actually apply all the design knowledge and the metaphors and the approach of digital music to that setup. And then we created a system for them that they were using till they changed to ProtoPixel, basically, to be able to address the lighting facade in an easy way,
organic,
in an organic way, with different type of video formats, with animations that they could do like data visualization. So basically, it was this kind of moment in which you come from a background with a heavy knowledge, and then you approach a new market with a fresh mind,
mm-hmm.
and then you say, okay, I can kind of like transpose all these metaphors and all these approaches from music to lighting. You can just approach it in a completely different way. And that's how, because after we did that, we started having calls from other buildings in Latin America, in the rest of Europe, and we saw that, and we developed a lot of bespoke systems for them. And we said, like, okay, it cannot be like that. We were sure that Philips or big brands would have like amazing, lighting control software, and they did. But the problem is that they were designed for expert users, that they were doing very cool stuff, but then they will leave, and no one will be able to operate it. So there were limitations at the design stage, at the distribution stage, and at the control stage. And basically, we saw that, okay, if we streamline, if we connect all these processes,
do end-to-end,
and make it, provide a consistent experience from one point to another, and we make it, there is no reason right now for not controlling light with any type of data. LEDs are ready for that. So you can control lighting with video, you can control lighting with images, you can control lighting with colors, you can control lighting with scripts. So we just made a data-driven system. And we made it, and that's why a big chunk of our users, of our designers, were not working on lighting before. They started working on lighting because of ProtoPixel, because we made it easier for them, and not only for the lighting experts, to drive lighting devices.
Interesting. That's and congratulations on that. I have one last question specifically, still in this area,
mm-hmm.
and probably this can be a very open-ended answer because it might be quite long. You come from clearly an academic background, mm-hmm. even though halfway through your PG, like you said, you understood that you wanted to do something, either jump into the industry, if I recall correctly, or build your own company.
Yeah.
How is the transition from the academic background, very process-oriented, very background, not very knowledge-oriented, to the untamed wilderness and jungle that it's the startup land?
Yeah. Well, I think that it can, at least in my case, it was quite organic, because at the end of the day, when you are into a PhD, you have a lot of freedom to organize your work.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you already have an idea, if you connect the dots, you can make a smooth transition between what you are, finishing your PhD or closing your research activity, and even transfer things from that experience to your business, or slowly moving towards your company. In my case, it was quite, because we started Protopixel when we were finishing our PhDs actually. So it's not that we finished and then we jumped into the company. We kind of overlap a bit. And I don't think it was, the most stressful actually factor was that it was a lot of work, because you will have to do two things at the same time, and they are definitely activities with different type of rhythms and different type of intensity. So we had to kind of like dealing with this. It's like you have to have your brain, working at two different speeds, and that was very, 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 very challenging. And also, I would say that we are not kind of like the classic startup, because we leverage a lot in the experience we got on research. So basically, that means that, for instance, we applied to a couple of public grants for innovation, and we got the money from there to actually start the business. So we knew how to apply for public money. We knew how to actually put together a grant, and that helped us a lot. We didn't have to put any money at the beginning. We just got the money from those grants. And then if you have like 50,000 euros in the bank to start the company, it's great. And that basically allowed us to start selling right ahead. So Protopixel was on break even, like at the from the very, very beginning. And that's if you are a researcher, or if you are in research and you are thinking of starting your own business, I think there are a lot of benefits, a lot of knowledge you can get from there, and you can apply it into your business without any doubt.
Curious.
We still have we are quite successful at getting innovation grants. We just got another innovation grant like a couple of months ago. And that basically helps you a lot for your R&D.
And it's money that you're not owing anyone.
And you're not owing anyone, and it gives you like a lot of resources for you to keep innovating. You definitely always have to be thinking in your next product. So even when you are still developing your product or your strategy, you have to have an idea of, so what are you going to do next? And R&D is instrumental. You cannot stop innovating.
But that's something very interesting, because if you don't want to go into this, you may not respond, of course, and we can just cut it out. But your product is the platform. So when you're thinking about the next product for Protopixel, is it an upgrade of the platform, or are you going to venture off to other uses of light, for example, concerts or anything else?
So the thing is that, I'm happy to answer this. So I would say that there are two different types of businesses in general, or startups. Businesses that solve a concrete problem right here, right now, and businesses that have a clear vision on how they are going to disrupt and impact into people's life in the ways they basically do things. We are the second type of company, and that means that you have we have a clear vision of, when I'm telling you, so we are in the process of democratizing lighting. So the platform is basically stage one on that. But in order to reach that level, because in order to get there, there are a number of products that we will be developing. So right now we focus. So we have a plan, of course, and that plan basically means that we are going. I think, like any other startup, that plan is to grow. So our growing plan, our product development cycle follows this growth objective. So right now we have the platform, which is clearly focused on design professionals for high profile businesses, and it's a professional market. But then we are already working, when I say that we are a community-based product, is because from this community we are right now learning and getting a solid idea of how are we going to bring all this lighting design content into a broader market. And I'm talking about, for instance, small and medium enterprises. So these ones are quickly now they are quickly adopting LEDs, but they have limited budget. So our product right now for them is not a good fit because it's inside this dynamic of professional designer business. So what we are doing right now, for instance, you say, well, so what's next? So our next step is the lighting marketplace. So in this marketplace is a revenue share model that is going to empower designers to be able to distribute these designs to a broader market, which is lower value than the professional one, but by high volume. And then by doing that, we will be able to, again, the problem is distribution. So the problem, right, the limitation is not tech, it's not software, it's not hardware, it's distribution. How we grant access to this new market. And this is what we are designing right now. It's a marketplace where any SME can acquire a professional lighting design from a professional designer in one click, with a very affordable piece of hardware that they just connect into their store, and they can just light the lighting right away.
Great. So I must be honest, I kind of lost track of time because I really love talking and all the knowledge you've been putting into this conversation. So I don't want to reschedule this for an hour and a half, and it's already past that. I would like to go into the fire round with you.
Okay.
So the fire round is quite easy. I ask you one question, and you try to answer that in less than 1 minute.
In less than 1 minute?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me, are you a book giver usually?
I would say, yeah, so.
Okay, then I'll ask the question 1A. What's the one book that impacted you the most?
The one book that impacted me the most. I would say it's called Consider the Lobster of David Foster Wallace.
Consider the Lobster.
The Lobster.
What is it about?
Well, Foster Wallace was a journalist and a writer, American, and it's a collection of essays about situations and things that happen mostly in the States in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And it goes from politics to porn to lobsters to September 11, and he has he was one of the most influential, because he's not alive, but he was one of the most influential writers in the last decade. And again, storytelling, that guy, he knows how to tell stories in a very nice way. I will totally recommend the book.
I'll have to read it.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me one tool that if it ended today, you couldn't have access to it today, you wouldn't be able to live without.
I think I would say Google Calendar, to be honest. But definitely. I would say, like, if you take out my Google Calendar, I will be completely screwed. I am very simple in that way. Yeah. I need it.
Tell me something you've changed your opinion in the last 6 months.
Something that changed my opinion
in the last 6 months.
But something that made me change my opinion.
Tell me something that your opinion has changed. So, in the last 6 months, you had a preconception, or you had an opinion on something. In the last 6 months, that changed.
I would say community. So community-based products. So the importance of the community. I completely changed my perception of that in the last 6 months, especially during the TechStart program.
So for people who don't know, Sebastian actually was part of the TechStars the Metro Accelerator for Retail powered by TechStars program.
That's
that actually
the way,
was with Jack, that already was part of the podcast.
Exactly.
Pranav and Sarah as well. Do you have any life motto or any quote that you like to live by?
Yeah, I mean, one is like, you really have to care about people. I mean, honestly, I do believe about that. You really have to. I think that's at least is one of my main rules. I do care about people, about how this is going to impact, especially in my team. If you are if you lead teams, if you in any type of like like social relationship, whatever, I think that makes a big difference. I mean, it sounds trivial, but it is. And recently I heard one that I'm also like putting in practice quite often, is that you will never regret of being brave.
Nice.
You will never regret of being brave. I mean, even when it's so difficult and even when you know it, you won't regret.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I never heard that, and I love that quote. I've never heard it, and I think it's one of the first times that I heard something as a quote, and I'm still thinking of it, even though you just said it. My mind is going 300 kilometers per hour, like saying,
"Oh, yeah, totally."
It gets inside your head.
Yeah. Because I mean, sometimes, I mean, you are in these moments and you have to make some decisions, and there is, I mean, and you take kind of energy from that kind of like approach.
I like it a lot. Thank you for that. Okay, last question. And this is something that I've been introducing quite recently, so you're not prepared for it.
Okay.
If I were to give you 6 months to prepare to do a TEDx talk, what would it be about?
I think it would have to be something around like tech, creativity, and community, or community-driven creative tech. That will span from music to lighting and to different domains. And yeah, I think that might be the topic. I know it's not very impressive, but that's kind of my expertise. That's my expertise, and that's what I do.
If that's your expertise, I'm going to be honest, I would listen to it, because that's something I think, as you figured out through this conversation, it's something that I'm quite passionate about. Well, this is the end of the podcast. Where can people find you? Where can people get in touch with you and figure out more about Protopixel?
So yeah, you can find us at protopixel.io. Also,
Protopixel, Proto Pixel.
Yeah.
Pixel.
Exactly. And then you can find me on Twitter. So it's at Mealla, like my last name, Mealla. Yeah, of course, on LinkedIn, just take my name, I guess.
Sebastian Mealla.
And yeah.
Perfect. Well, Sebastian, it was a really great pleasure having you here on the Pioneers Show.
Andre, thank you so much for the invitation. I really enjoyed it.
And I really, really enjoyed our conversation. Well, take care. Thank you so much for plugging into this episode. I truly hope you loved this conversation as much as I did. Sebastian was really inspiring, and I really, really felt like I had a total new education on lighting technology. Any other information that you might have missed will probably be linked up in the show notes. If you enjoyed this conversation, consider subscribing to make sure that this podcast grows and we can get to more people and help everyone be the pioneers of their lives and careers. If there's any feedback, feel free to reach out to me on social media. A big thank you to Sebastian for arranging the time for this great conversation. A great thank you for Tibor Flundlin, aka DJ Rodia, for the music of the Pioneers Show. Once again, it was really a great pleasure having you over there, and have a great time. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.